Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Recently, I had to iron a few things on an ironing board because you did that. Anyway, and the weird part of my brain thought, who invented the iron? My brain does weird things when I'm doing normal things. Turns out the electric iron was invented by Henry Seeley White in 1882. Not a woman. All right, cool, awesome. I learned something new that day. Awesome. Then I couldn't help but think, well, who invented the ironing board? I think that's a perfectly normal follow-up question to your own brain's question. Turns out the ironing board was invented by an African-American woman named Sarah Boone. Trust me, this is interesting. Let's get started. Sarah Marshall was born in 1832 in Creven County, North Carolina, close to the town of New Bern. She was born into slavery along with 3 other siblings. Since she was a slave, she was not given any kind of education. However, her grandfather did educate her to some extent in his home. Now, since she was born into slavery, we know truly nothing about her childhood. But Sarah would become free after marrying a free black man named James Boone on November 25th, 1847 in New Bern. And if you do the math, Sarah was 15 years old when she got married. Again, different times, it's fine. And the free couple went on to have 8 kids. No. Ow, no. I don't know if you can hear her. She's purring so loudly. Oh, you're lying down, you squish your little head and go kitty. Okay. The family was unhappy living in North Carolina for obvious reasons. So before the outbreak of the American Civil War, they somehow, and I'm infuriated that I couldn't find exactly how, they became connected to people that helped the family move to New Haven, Connecticut by utilizing the Underground Railroad. I have been wanting to talk about the Underground Railroad. I've been waiting for this moment in my life. So, we're going to talk about the Underground Railroad for 3 things. 1, as you know, I'm a history geek. 2, it's important for you to understand the hell it was for Sarah and others to not only escape slavery, but to just move. And 3, it's a very unfortunate amount of people that don't know about the Underground Railroad and or how it even worked and or what it even is. And it's a real shame because it's astounding. All right, here we go. She is like, so she does this thing where she squishes her head into places, and it's the cutest thing ever. Okay. The Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes and safe houses established by African Americans and some white people, believe it or not. It was used by enslaved African Americans to escape slavery and to go to free states and Canada. Some routes even led to Mexico and the Caribbean, which was surprising to me, because in those countries, slavery was abolished and not a part of the slave trade. We don't exactly know when it was established, but we do know that it was during the early to mid 19th century. If you're like me, you've always wondered how the Underground Railroad got its name. So let me tell you. Again, this is amazing to me. In 1831, an enslaved man named Tice Davis escaped from his owner in Kentucky and got to Ohio. His owner blamed an Underground Railroad for helping Tice escape to freedom. Simple origin story, but it makes complete sense. I thought it was going to be some elaborate story. Nope. Simple, easy, boom, done. However, then in 1839, a Washington newspaper published a story of an escaped enslaved man named Jim, don't know last name, after being tortured, revealed his plan to go to north by following an underground railroad to Boston. I'm still going. Again, this is so cool to me. I can't move a lot, and I love to move because you are blocking my movement, but I really don't care because I have my kitty here, and you don't move when a cat is on your lap. We all know that when a cat makes a bed on your lap, you don't move. Anyway, in New York in 1835 and Philadelphia in 1838, vigilance committees, which were self-appointed private citizens who administered law and order or used violence where they thought the government's structures or actions were inadequate. Sounds a lot like vigilante justice, but we're moving on. Wanted to create something to protect escaped enslaved people from bounty hunters. They soon expanded to helping runaway slaves, and by the 1840s, Underground Railroad was a common term. Blowing your mind here, huh? Blew your mind, blew my mind. All of our minds are blown. The main reason why the railroad was created was when the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 was passed in the Deep South. It made it so that it required that slaves be returned to their owners even if they were in free states. Hate that. So, as with anything and everything, people created businesses out of this inhumane act, because we all know that that's how everything just works. The lucrative business of capturing escaped slaves like freaking Pokemon made it so there were fewer hiding spots for those escaping slavery. Sure, it's dark and morbid, but it is a good example for those in today's world to understand what exactly the Fugitive Slave Act was and what bounty hunters were. And if you did not know, the Fugitive Slave Act was basically the start of the modern day police force. Anyway, here's how the Underground Railroad worked. The route itself wasn't even underground, and I'm sure as you're guessing, it wasn't an actual train. Hold on. It was a series of hiding places that included churches, private homes, and schoolhouses. Even though it wasn't an actual train, they used train lingo. Again, this is so cool to me. The people that guided the escaped slaves were known as conductors. The hiding places were called... We gonna get down? Cool. Now I can adjust. All right, cool. The hiding places were called stations, depots, and safe houses, and the people that operated those were called station masters. Isn't that so freaking cool? That is so cool to me. One of the most famous conductors was Harriet Tubman, and she's a video all in her own. Don't worry, she's coming. Okay, my history geek side is happy. Back to Sarah. When they got to New Haven, truly, how did they get to New Haven? The family settled into a black neighborhood near Dixwell Avenue in a house at 30 Winter Street. And I actually found the main little place of it. Like, look how cool that is. I don't know if that's the original house. I highly doubt it, but still, that's really cool. Google Maps and history is fun. Her husband found work as a bricklayer and Sarah worked as a dressmaker. The family joined the Dixwell Avenue Congregational. The family joined the Dixwell Avenue Congregational, not Congress, Congregational. The family joined the Dixwell Avenue Congregational Church. I said it. Yay! That was really hard for my mouth to form. It is through this church that it is thought that Sarah gained more education in reading and writing in her late 40s. Now, we all know there's fierce competition in all types of businesses, and Sarah's dress company was no different. Especially back in the 1800s and before then, women wore nothing but dresses back then. There was a lot of competition. Sarah wanted a way for her dresses to catch the eye of customers and stand out from her competition. And by the late 1890s, she thought of something brilliant. All right, I'm gonna blow your mind again. Fascinatingly, dressmakers were mainly ironing clothes on a wooden plank across two chairs. Yeah. Not saying it wasn't smart, just saying not exactly the most efficient way of doing things. And in my mind, again, I don't really know how safe electric irons were back then, because if you look at them, they don't look exactly all that flame retardant. And all I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of dresses caught on fire and then the wood caught on fire. This method, I guess, worked fine for at least wide skirts, but not the best for those more tiny elements of needing to iron, like, say, a corset. So, Sarah thought up a solution. The solution was to make a narrower, curved board that could slip into the sleeves of the garment and could shift without getting wrinkled. She also put padding on the board so that the impressions from the wood wouldn't show up on the garment when it was ironed. Hold on. And she made it collapsible for easy storage. Freaking insane. And voila, that was the beginning of the modern ironing board. I'm blowing your mind here, just like how my mind was blown. Now, the ironing board was already invented in 1858 by J. Harvey and W. Vandenberg. It was called an ironing table. There's a difference, apparently. They didn't know that. And by the time Sarah's invention came along, there had already been hundreds of patents granted. Like, I'm not even kidding remotely here. By the early 1870s, there was a patent granted for ironing boards about once a month. Apparently, people were really trying to figure this out. Now, when looking at all of these patents for these inventions, I couldn't find if they were all done by men, but from what I could see, it was mainly men. Women think out of the box, especially housewives think out of the box. And we invented the ironing board. Why? Because we are smart. Don't know what I just said, but we're going with it. So technically, Sarah's invention was really an improvement to the ironing table. But needless to say, Sarah invented the modern ironing board. When inventing the ironing board, Sarah said she wanted a way, quote, to produce a cheap, simple, convenient, and highly effective device, particularly adapted to be used in ironing the sleeves and bodies of ladies' garments, end quote. Sarah, with the help of a small group of fellow co-workers, she set out to design the device, and by 1892, using her writing skills that she acquired even more all along the way of making her invention, that's right, she was learning to read and write while she was inventing this thing, she applied for her patent. And on April 26, 1892, she was granted her patent, making her one of the first African-American women in the history of the United States to earn a patent. Boom. Now, unfortunately, but not too surprising, we don't know if she got any profit out of her invention, especially when it became a household staple. And as companies began to mass distribute it and get, of course, very wealthy, her name faded away from her invention. As again, I didn't know who invented her invention. And here's even more something to get mad about. On top of her name being kind of faded away from her invention, there's not a single company or product named after her. Just like with Alice, that needs to change. Because again, how can it be you invented a thing and your name is not at least somewhat tied to it? Or at least there's a company that is named after it. Don't know how that works, but whatever. Sarah Boone died on October 29th, 1904 at the age of 71 or 72 from Bright's disease, or known today as nephritis, which is an inflammation of the kidneys caused by toxins, infection, or autoimmune conditions. She is buried next to her mother and husband, who died in the 1870s, in Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven, Connecticut. All right, there you go. At least in this one, we knew a little bit more about her. Just like Alice, even though we don't know much about her, her story deserves to be told. And I hope I did her justice. If you learned something today, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And while you're down there, please leave a friendly comment. I will be back next week with another video. And until then, don't be well behaved. You just might make herstory. See you next time, guys.